Carlos Nelson with Cascade Media Group in What's Up, Kansas City. And today we have another one of our guests, community leader, I would say, and activist. And he's going to talk about what he's been up to as of late. Who do we have here?
Well, first of all, Carlos, this is Mickey Dean, Black United Front, and always glad to be a part of Cascade Media Group. That's an important institution in our community, and so I support it whenever I can.
Tell our audience a little bit what you've been up to, Mickey, since the last time you've been on the show. We talked about reparations and other issues, but when I talked to you off camera, you were saying that you had made some headway. Talk to our community and audience about that.
Well, we've made a lot of progress on the reparations issue, both nationally and locally. I'm focused more on the local issue, but just to update you nationally, I think the last time I was on, we talked about HR 40. That's the legislation in Congress to pass a reparations study bill. And this time, the study bill is to determine not whether or not Black folks deserve reparations, but that's been determined. The study bill now is what form should these reparations take? Of course, Congressman John Conyers championed that issue for a long time. He passed away a couple of years ago, and now Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee from Texas has taken up the mantle. She's made a lot of progress. The bill currently has 162 co-sponsors in the House of Representatives, including our congressperson, Congressman Cleaver. And she's hoping to get a hearing and actually an up and down vote hearing after the election, whenever it ends. For the first time this year, there is a companion bill in the Senate that Senator Cory Booker introduced, and he has currently, I think, about 20 co-sponsors. Now, the hope prior to this week was that the Senate would flip to the Democratic side. I'm not sure that's going to happen. The reason that was important is that all 162 of the House members who are co-sponsors, all 20 of the Senate members that are co-sponsors are Democrats. Not one single Republican has co-sponsored this legislation, either in the House or the Senate. So that's why they were hoping for a trifecta, keeping the House Democratic, flipping the Senate, and getting a Democratic president in Joe Biden. But at any rate, that's the progress that's been made on the national level. A couple other things that's happened. You know, Carlos, even when I talked to you last year, we can go back 5 or 10 years. The whole notion, when you talk to people about reparations, they kind of give you a side eye. Like, come on, man, you know, that's a good idea, but that's never going to happen. Why are y'all even wasting time with that? So what we've seen since I talked to you last, there have been 4 cities that have passed ordinances in support of reparations. The first one being, of all places, Evanston, Illinois. Evanston, Illinois passed a reparations ordinance back in December. Evanston is outside of Chicago, but it's predominantly white town. And Illinois legalized cannabis. And so what they agreed to do was to give 10% of the cannabis proceeds to the reparations effort. This is strictly for Black people, and they're going to talk about using it for home ownership and business development. It's going to come to about $1 million a year. Now, that may not seem like much, but Evanston is not a huge city. So that was significant in that was the very first reparations ordinance that was passed in this country. Now, there's one in Asheville, North Carolina. There's one in Providence, Rhode Island, and there's a third one in the Northeast that escapes me right now. So far, none of the major cities have passed reparations legislation, but we know that there are efforts in Washington, D.C. that are ongoing, in Chicago, and in New York City. And that brings us to Kansas City. In the Black United Front, of course, we've been talking about reparations for quite a while now.
This is brought to you by Africana Art.
Of organizations to pursue local reparations. Now, local reparations, what that would do is that would look at Kansas City's history, okay? to look at, first of all, the state of Black people in Kansas City in various areas. And we've identified areas: education, social justice, economics, home ownership, and there's one other one. But those areas will be studied to look at what role the Kansas City government, Kansas City institutions, Kansas City corporations, what role have they played in denying Black folks access to equality? And then we're going to go after those institutions and organizations and city government for reparations. So right now, of course, the Black United Front is a part of this coalition. We have the Nation of Islam, we have the Urban League, we have SCLC, we have Sankofa for Kansas City, and we have the NAACP, and we have a few individuals. And so we're going to be working on local reparations. So that's something that I want people to sort of keep their eyes out for. So that's where we are right now. We've made a lot of progress on the reparations front since I talked to you last, and we're looking to keep going at this.
How can our community get involved? Is there anything that they can do to assist you and that coalition in your efforts?
Well, I'll tell you what, this is going to be a tough fight because there are a lot of people who just don't think that Black people deserve reparations. A lot of people, particularly white people, say, listen, man, slavery was a long time ago. We didn't have anything to do with that. I didn't own any slaves. So why are you bringing this up now? And it's important to make the point that reparations is not just about the way Black folks was treated during slavery, the unpaid labor. The oppression continued during the entire Jim Crow era, and it has continued up until today.
What I would ask you to do, I didn't cut you off as much as I cut most of my people off, bro. But what I would like you to describe for our people, you said Jim Crow era. If give them what that era was from the dates per se, so that they'll understand where you're coming from in each.
Well, after the Civil War, there was a brief Reconstruction period where Black folks were actually citizens. We had Black folks that were elected into the House of Representatives at the national level, and we had local Black legislatures. But of course, Reconstruction was ended abruptly, and after that, you had, particularly in the South, the rise of the Klan, the rise of other terrorist groups that basically said, we've got to, and this may sound familiar, we got to take back our country from the—
Doesn't it sound familiar?
From the Northerners. And so that ushered in this area of Black codes, which we call Jim Crow, where laws were specifically passed to discriminate against Black people. In other words, in just about every area, whether it was education, whether it was employment, just about in every area, it was actually legal to discriminate against Black people. So that whole era existed up until the Civil Rights era, when some of those laws were finally overturned. And even then, after they were overturned, up from that point in the 60s up until today, we still see all of the discrepancies that exist today, in terms of Black people not being on par with—
well, see, that's what, cutting you off, that's what I really don't understand when you talk about the majority community, and I talk white and Black, that they don't understand that things were put systemically in place to hold Black people back. And I'm not understanding when white people say, well, what does that have to do with me?
Well, the thing is that what we point out is that you may not have directly imposed any of those restrictions on Black folks, but you certainly get the benefits of them by no effort of your own. White people say, well, I worked hard for what I got. Are you saying Black folks didn't work hard? In other words, is our problem the reason that we're on the bottom is because we didn't work hard enough? I mean, we worked harder than anybody, but there were these—
built this country.
Yeah, there were these structural obstacles in place that prevented us from being able to advance. And I'm talking about, recent. If even something like the the New Deal. And that was in
This is brought to you by Willard's Book and Vinyls.
the 40s, I think, that Roosevelt's New Deal. Social Security, unemployment benefits, all of those things were denied to agricultural workers and to domestic workers. That was the large majority of Black folks, and it was intentionally denied to agricultural workers and
Domestic workers, because we were cleaning the houses,
right,
doing
because the Southerners did not want them included in the New Deal. Things like the GI Bill. This is where a lot of white folks, got a lot of their wealth is through home ownership, right? So these people were coming home from World War II, and they were taking advantage of the GI Bill, where they could get low interest mortgages, and also they could get college education. Well, Black people were denied that. Okay?
And modern suburbia was being set up at that time.
Precisely. And so if you look back at the average white family now, most of the wealth is in home ownership. With that home ownership opportunity, most of that came during the New Deal, and Black folks were denied that. One of your local heroes, J.C. Nichols, was very important. He was influential in forming the Federal Housing Administration under the Roosevelt administration, and he was one of the ones that basically instituted redlining, basically meaning you draw a red line.
Cutting you off. That see, because you're an academic, my niece out of DC works for a major large corporation that does they bring them in and have them examine the city and tell what's wrong with the city and all of this. And I talked to her the other day, and she was saying that J.C. Nichols had founded her company. And this is I didn't know, and she started talking about the racism because they're having problems with this company now that he founded with diversity and so forth. Didn't know that this man was just an outright racist.
Well, not only that, his influence extended far beyond Kansas City.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like I said, he was one of the founders of the Federal Housing. He's the Federal Housing Authority Administration that basically established a lot of the housing regulations back in the late 40s and early 50s. And
but when you think of J.C. Nichols as a Kansas City, and I'm New York, but I have been here since '78. You don't see none of that. What you see, or what comes in my mind, Christmas, Thanksgiving, nice, the undertones of all of that.
But it's coming out now, Carlos. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion about. There really has been a lot of discussion about J.C. Nichols with some of us for quite some time. But of course, with the uptick in activism, Black activism this summer, this J.C. Nichols issue came back to the forefront. And as you see now, they've stripped his name from, I think, the Parkway down there on the plaza, and they're taking his name off of some other stuff because now his past is coming to light, and people say, yeah, he's contributed a lot to the city, but he's also done a lot of damage. Black people are still suffering from the damage caused by the policies, the J.C. Nichols policies, when it comes to redlining and denial of home ownership. We're still suffering from that.
That's what I don't understand, why white people keep denying that there's a problem, that all you have to do is turn on the TV. If a Black person moves out this house, it's less. If a white person moves out, it's more, as it relates to.
Well, I don't think it's because it's not because white folks don't know. If there's one thing that white folks clearly understand, Carlos, is that there's an advantage to being white in America. Okay, they have definite privileges in being white, and they have no intention of giving that up. And I'm talking about even your white liberals, so-called white liberals. Right. I'm not talking about Trump supporters.
So going to that.
Trump supporters are clear. But the issue is, I give it a good example. We're looking at education. Education is funded primarily by property taxes. Okay, it's not equal. I mean, you look at the areas where the home values are high. Well, obviously you're going to have higher property taxes than in the urban core. So those schools are going to get funded a lot better. Now, the thing is that should there be equal funding for all students, all citizens of Kansas City, regardless of where you live? Well, it should be. So a simple solution to that would be eliminate schools being funded based on property taxes, okay? But you think people in Brookside and some of these other areas are gonna go for that?
No,
Because,
but let me say this while it's on my mind. I told you why I interrupt people. After when the election first started the other day, I turned it off because every time the elections and I'm looking at the TV, that stuff starts upsetting me, what I actually see happening. So I turned it off to the next day, and then you still got all this stuff going on. And then something comes across my screen. This shouldn't be happening. No way that this should be closed. And then it goes down a list of different things that the administration has done and what have you. I have come to the conclusion, and I hate to come say this, white people are racist in general, whether they are knowingly or because they know and they don't want to give that up. I say there's no reason for a white man in America to be broke with all of the advantages and different things that are there for them. And Puffy, I think I had this conversation off camera with you, Ice Cube, and Puffy said, hey, we need our own party, a black party. And that's really, really simple. If all black people were in that party, that's power. We don't have, on the way back from my godfather's this morning, I'm listening to KKFI and the guys talking about democracy and all of this representation and what have you. And America is not a democracy. Democracies really have 3, 4, 5 different parties. And we only have these 2 parties. And corporate America controls those parties. And who controls corporate America? It's not people that look like you and me.
No, yes, you're right. And I think that's why, yeah. And I think that's why, we go through this every 4 years about the Democratic Party when it comes to presidential elections. Well, yeah, the Democrats haven't done a whole lot for black folks, but look at the alternative. There's always look at the alternative, and it keeps us, we're kicking the same can down the road. There's been efforts in the past to form an independent black party. There's been efforts to form a progressive party. You may recall in 1972, I believe it was, in Gary, Indiana, there was a formation of a National Independent Black Political Party. Now
I wasn't woke then.
Okay, but that happened, and it was really a huge gathering, and there was a lot of sentiment towards forming an independent black party. But each time that there's this pull towards getting away from the Democratic Party has the ability to use, and it's usually black politicians, to pull us back into the Democratic Party, and there's just been this reluctance to break away from the Democratic Party because we bought into this idea that, well, you only got 2 parties, right? So we got to be in one or the other, and there really is no alternative, and so you're shooting yourself in the foot.
But there is an alternative.
Well, that's the line.
Right. But the point I'm bringing up now.
Carlos, but here's the point, Carlos. If at some point, black people are going to realize that white people, and I don't like to generalize a lot, but in general, white people, conservatives, liberals, they don't really have our best interests at heart. They're looking out for themselves, okay? And so if they can create policy that benefits them, and a residual effect is that it benefits us, then so be it. But when you're talking about creating policy for black folks, I mean, they're opposed to it. Even some of the, you ask yourself, if you look at things like Medicare for all, health insurance, expansion of free education, those kind of things. Those things would benefit probably more than us, middle class and poor white folks. Okay, why is it that the white folks in South Carolina can elect a Lindsey Graham? White folks in Kentucky can elect a Mitch McConnell, and these are 2 people that stand for the interests of the wealthy class.
But hold
Well,
it.
the reason, Carlos, is that they put it on these people's mind that if you support this what they call government intrusion, massive legislation, you're going to be helping out these lazy brown and black folks get benefits that you work hard for that they don't deserve. So these folks will shoot themselves in the foot to keep from seeing other people advance. I mean, and we're talking about things that would benefit them. But that's the effect.
Real quick, man.
That's the effect of racism in this country, Carlos. And smart politicians like McConnell and Lindsey Graham, they play on that because they know that that's going to always be a go-to for them. Is this race issue?
But that's the point I'm making. I said this earlier. I just believe that it's just straight racism. It's racism on a color basis, but then it's on an economic basis. You have half part of that white population that realize the economic implications by promoting things that would benefit Black people. It's just like food stamps. They put out there like Black people on. There's more white people on food stamps and these programs. They had us as the crack people and the drug people. But as soon as the white population dives into drugs and all of this, now it's a sickness. So from my perspective as a Black man supporting Black causes, Cascade Media Group is one of the things that we have to have because we can put an alternative message out there. They control the mainstream media, and the Mitch McConnells and the Donald Trumps and what have you. They control them. They have access to that media, and so their position is constantly out there. The left never really puts their position out there until it's an incident. Besides what I love them girls up there call the squad. They're looking for accountability and they're grassroots. They say the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Well, the key to our liberation, I think, and I believe this for a long time, it's our philosophy in Black United Front, is independence and self-determination. We need our own independent institutions, whether it's education institutions, financial institutions, social institutions, and our communications institutions. We need to be able to tell our own story and project our own message. And that's where institutions like Cascade Media are important, because otherwise, I mean, if you look at the history of people of European descent, okay, since they left Europe, can you name one place where white folks have gone where the native people are better off now than they were before white folks got there? Okay, you go to Africa, you go to Australia, you go to South America. Of course, we know what happened here with the native people. There's nowhere these folks have gone in the world that they've been able to live with in peace and harmony with the indigenous people who were there. Everywhere they've gone, they've raped, they've pillaged, they've stolen, they've destroyed. Everywhere, every single place. And so now, if we look at the history of our relationship with white people in this country, I mean, it's been very similar. So why are we expecting somehow there's going to be this miraculous change in how white people deal with us? I think Dr. King was most instructive. If you recall, during the early part of Dr. King's career, his whole thing was about love and extending love and trying to bring the races together, through love. But by the end of Dr. King's career, one of his statements was, he said, "I'm afraid I have asked our people to integrate into a burning house," and he began to see that maybe this isn't the way, to go. And Dr. King, near the end of his career, was talking about that he was really anti-capitalist, okay, in terms of capitalism as an economic system, and actually used the term democratic socialism once or twice. But he talked about the importance, the need of a redistribution of wealth. In other words, Dr. King said there's something fundamentally wrong, okay, with the economic and social foundations of this country, that reforms can no longer change. And so this needs to be a total, and I don't think he really used the term revolution, but if you read his later writings, right, in order to accomplish what he was talking about accomplishing, for instance, the redistribution of wealth in this country, the end to militarism, you're going to have to end this society as we know it. And that's the part that come every January. When they have the King celebration, they talk about have a dream, but they kind of gloss over the radical part of Dr. King. I've gained more respect for Dr. King the more I learn about what he really stood for near the end of his life.
I was getting ready to say the beginning of his life, the middle of his life, but from, you know, I'm not a, you and some of them brothers in the front are really scholars. I'm not like that, but I get on the fringes, and my understanding at the end of his life, he seen it was all about economics.
Yeah,
and him and Malcolm basically were coming together on issues that they were far apart on.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand why in the 60s and all of these, well, not all, but a lot of Black politicians and Black people revere Martin, but not looking at his last messages. And I think Coretta Scott King, this was told to me. I don't have firsthand knowledge, but some people that I know very well that knew the King said that they didn't kill Martin over this stuff. They killed Martin because when he started talking economics.
Yeah, that is, and his opposition to the Vietnam War.
The war.
He was beginning to tie the Vietnam War to the deprivation of economics in the Black neighborhood. He talked about all of the money that this country was spending on war. He talked a lot about militarism. He talked about all of the money that this country was spending on war in Vietnam and not putting that money into social programs, you know, in the Black community. In fact, you know, as you know, he was in, when he was killed, he was in Memphis down there to support the an economic strike by the sanitation workers down there. So he did, in his later years, turn his attention to economic inequalities. And so when he started talking about redistributing wealth and those kind of things, I mean, if you hear that today, folks going to brand you a socialist. You know,
well,
redistributing wealth. I mean, that's kind of what, in a sense, Bernie Sanders' campaign.
All right, this is what I don't understand: the term socialism, right? I don't understand why affordable health care got to get a label socialist type when most of the white people are on that program. They vote against it, then they go to the doctors and they be like, no, you were on that. You've got to have another program now. Anything that's taking care of the people is socialism.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, that's the way this country looks at it. The so-called conservatives in this country are vastly different from the conservative parties in European countries, because if you notice, most European countries, they have socialized medicine. They have Medicare for all. A lot of them have free college education. You know, the difference with the conservatives in this country is this matter of race. Okay, I mean, these folks.
America introduced race into the world, really.
Yeah, I mean, people think that I'm not going to do anything that's going to help these lazy brown and Black people. I don't care if it is going to help me too, you know. But that's the depth of racism in this country, and what we believe, you know, in Black United Front is that it's a waste of time trying to do all of these race relations things, man. What we got to do for self, man. I mean, this goes back to from Martin Delaney to Marcus Garvey to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to Malcolm X to groups like the Republic of Africa that basically said we need, not the Republic said we need an independent state, you know, our own land base. But essentially, I think that it's important for us to understand that if we're going to advance, we've got to have independent institutions that are controlled by Black people, political, education, economic, etc. We cannot depend on these other folks to look after us. and until we
I don't
realize
really,
that,
hold it, let me tell you this. I don't think we can depend on ourselves, politicians, unless we send them there with a direct message of what we want and how we want it. Because when they get in, it seems like they take care of us after they've taken care of their corporate or and their business. Then they take care of the community's business.
Well, part when we talk about independence, I mean, part of that is being independent minded, and that our mindset is that we have to do for self and not depend on others. So we won't be trying to pull our people into the Democratic Party the way that a lot of our current politicians are doing.
So
It's a tough
think
struggle.
about a Black Party.
Listen, I have no problem with organizing independently into a Black political party. We have to understand that that party can have success with allies, particularly at the local level. You know, I mean, now Kansas City is not a city like DC or Chicago or places or Atlanta where you have tremendous Black populations, right? So but a Black party would be a party that addresses our interests. Now, at certain points, you may need the help of some allies, to get things done politically. But at least you've got an organization that puts forward your position in terms of what the needs of the Black community are, and it's got to be a party that's not going to sell out those interests. And that, I think, I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Well, see, I'm going to be trying to work towards that, because I think that would be Black people's most powerful position, where after the majority community left, whether they Republicans or Democrats, fight it out on positions, then our party is only interested in our interests, and we're going to go with Republicans or Democrats, whoever is serving our interests. And I think that's the only way to go. At this point, because as I said earlier, I just don't see the majority of white people wanting to give up white privilege. They understand what white privilege is about, and they're trying to preserve their race as they see it, not understanding that even though they're white, they're African. they come from Africa. All history.
Yeah, well, you're gonna have to miss me with them folks being Africans, man. I'm not including these people with us, man.
But what I'm saying is, human beings.
I hear what you're saying. That ain't resonate with me, man.
I know, because they have, hold it, and I get it. Some of the things that you said, every place that they have put their foot landed on, they have brought destruction. And so anybody in their right mind would be saying, hey, but in the spirit of reaching out to ones that want to do the right thing, I'm there. And I deal with that on my sports. Let me say, on my sports program, I asked two major white coaches, I'm not going to say who they are. I said, I'd like you to have your show on Cascade Sports so that we are reaching out to our white brethren so that they can understand what our plight is in sports and what our plight is in education. You're well-founded in the white community. They socialize with me or really with me, but we need you to bridge that gap with the other people. They didn't want to, they're good, but when I'm like, have a show, because people, even good white people, don't want to be seen aiding us to a degree.
I think to a degree, white people don't have a problem, I think, with supporting Black causes, again, as long as it doesn't threaten their position of domination. I mean, you see a lot of white philanthropy, for example, but what white people want, they want to be able to maintain being in a position where they can give to the poor, right? Not elevate the poor to the same level as them, But philanthropy to them is the fact that they can help, help these poor people, but they don't look at these folks as equal, and they don't intend to look at them as
I read
equal.
a book
They want to continue to have a society where they can be philanthropists.
It's called, the book that I just finished reading, Winner Takes All. That's how they believe. We the winner, and we take the whole globe. We take the world. It's ours.
Yeah, and that's exactly. I mean, if you look at American foreign policy, there are about 600 military bases all over the world. This is not Republican or Democrat. This is
capitalism at work.
The corporate elite basically saying that we feel like it's our right to police the world, it's our right to dominate the world. And the reason they do that is because they want to be able to control all of the natural resources of the world to the benefit of the corporate elite. And I think what we have to understand is that that's going to be the case today or tomorrow, whether it's Trump is president, whether it's Biden is president. There's still going to be
whether it's Barack is president.
Same thing. I mean, he did nothing to reduce America's imperialist attempts to dominate the world because he was up that class. You can't be president unless you are inclined to do that. That's why the corporate elite hated Bernie Sanders. They would have done everything in their power to keep Bernie Sanders from being president of the United States. Because if I was not saying I'm a big Bernie Sanders fan, because I really had issues with him on this race issue, but Bernie Sanders, I mean, some of the things that he was talking about was really reconstituting how capital worked in this country. And there were parts of the corporate elite who are members of the Democratic Party who would have much rather seen a Trump presidency than a Bernie Sanders presidency, because Bernie Sanders was talking about hurting some of their interests, right? Whereas they may have issues with Trump, but at least Trump's going to look out for the rich folks,
Well,
and they were okay with that.
This is what I've noticed, and I talk white and black if you looked at my interviews. When Bush got in office, baby Bush, all the white people around me that I knew, I said, how could you vote? Nobody voted for him. That according to them. When he got in office the second time, nobody voted for him. The same thing with this Trump deal. If you are 40 years or older, you have seen how our presidents handle themselves internationally, nationally, and appropriately. Trump has done all of this and white people still vote for him. That just shows that, to me, it just says racism.
Well, I guess I'm kind of
surprised. No, I didn't vote for him.
Listen, I'm surprised when I see a lot of times on social media people acting like this is some revelation about white folks. I mean, a lot of us in the Black nationalist community have been saying this about white folks forever. And I'm talking about conservative white folks, liberal white folks. White folks look out for white folks' interests, and I think it was Frances Cress Welsing, and she may have been paraphrasing Neely, but she says, if you don't understand white supremacy, everything else will confuse you, meaning if you don't understand the basics of why white people do what they do, then you're going to be locked into doing things like affirmative action as a solution, okay, or diversity and inclusion as solutions. I mean, all of those things help, but they don't get at the structural racism that exists. Okay, basically what they're saying is that you can keep the structure. We just want to be included, or we just want a better piece of it. We want a more comfortable position in it. But they're not really looking at dismantling these racist institutions, because one of the things that every society does, the oppressors, the way they blunt the movement of people that they oppress, is you create this stratum of folks among the oppressed that this sort of middle stratum that's going to be on your side, that you can use to dupe the other people. So that's always been the case, and so that's why there are Black people, and I'm not anti these folks, but these are folks that are looking for a more comfortable position in a corrupt society. They just want a better jobs, better positions, and so forth, and they're okay. They're not looking to dismantle this whole racist, capitalist, imperialist structure, and that's the only thing that's going to be in the best interest of the masses of our people.
Do you know what? What just flashed in my mind? All right, so Trump and his crew, they're just like, we don't like you blacks, we don't like you Hispanics, we don't like, and just the plain message, and they people go with it. All right. Mm-hmm. When we start talking about Black power, then they start talking about the gay community, the all these different, and then they use these inclusion. Including watering our stuff down, including all these other, and it's confusing. And I'm more like, let's just keep it black. Black party, black everything, and either you with it or you not. And if you're not, then we know how to deal with you.
My primary focus is on Black institutions. Now, from a professional standpoint, as you know, I spent a career in the city's human relations department. Okay. And most of my work was with the Civil Rights Division. And of course, in the Civil Rights Division, you had what you call protected categories that included race, but it also included, disability. It included women. It included national origin. It included Kansas City had an ordinance that included the LGBT community. So one of the things that I learned is that there are a lot of people who are oppressed by this corporate capitalist elite system. There are a lot of people that are oppressed, and they are deserving of their rights, okay? And I have no problem with people fighting for their rights. Everybody should fight for their rights. It's just that my focus now is on Black people, okay? That's my focus, all right? Now, if there are times, I'll give you an example. We in the Black United Front, we were part of the whole fight for $15 an hour, okay? And that's a struggle that you had people of all races, okay, involved in trying to fight for $15 an hour. We were involved in that fight because it would definitely benefit our people, to have $15 an hour, but it would benefit other people also. But we were looking at it from the standpoint is that this is in the interest of Black people, okay? So we could unite with whoever in this struggle for $15 an hour. And even with reparations, okay? The leadership of the reparations movement in terms of who makes the decisions about the form that reparations should take, et cetera, that has to come from the people who have been damaged, okay? Black people, right? But anybody that wants to support reparations, we welcome that, because white folks really should support reparations, not that they will, but they really should. And we go way back in Black United Front in working in alliances. If you remember in the 80s, when the anti-apartheid movement was very strong, we started the anti-apartheid movement in Kansas City in Black United Front. We created what was called the Kansas City Anti-Apartheid Network to include anybody that really wanted to fight against the apartheid system in South Africa by doing things locally, like getting the city to divest its pension funds from corporations that invested in South Africa. But those are the kind of things where I'm saying that we get involved in those things because of what's in the best interest of Black people. But a lot of times in those struggles, you will have allies from other races and other movements, and I'm good with that. But our focus is on what's in the best interest of Black people.
Yeah, well, hey, Mickey, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Do you have any closing statements?
I guess my closing statement is always that Black people, that we've got to look out for ourselves. We've got to really learn to use all of the tremendous talents and resources that we have and put them to use for our people more than for other folks, and that we need to build independent Black institutions, social institutions, educational institutions, cultural institutions. We have to act like we are a Black nation within a nation, and try to develop. I mean, you can't be totally independent from this system if we live in here in this country. You know, I mean, it's impossible. Okay, but to the extent that we can have independent bases of operation in our community, that's what I think we need to focus on. That's my thing. Black liberation, Black nationalism, independent self-determination. That's what the Black United Front believes in.
Hey, Mickey, I steal Jim Watt's line all the time, make him mad. He says it's a plum pleasing pleasure to have you on the show. hey, Watts, I stole it, and you better not steal my line. And as I close all the time, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Good night.
Program is brought to you by the Kansas City Business Association.